Perfect. Thank you so much for everyone that's joining us tonight. We are now officially beginning our 48th meeting for the Shafter Community Steering Committee. Welcome everyone to our meeting today. Today is Monday, October 10th, and we are going to get started momentarily. As I share my screen, I see Anabel has her hand raised. Anabel, ¿tiene una pregunta, Anabel?
Sí, ahorita les iba a mandar la lista de todos los que están aquí participando. We have a group of people here, so I'll put it in the chat.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Bianca. I appreciate it. Thanks, everyone, for joining us tonight. I'm going to share our group agreement as we move through some of the housekeeping items that we have for tonight. So as I previously mentioned, tonight is October 10th, and today is our 48th Community Steering Committee for Shafter. We will momentarily go through several instructions to ensure that we have the right accessibility to all of our members who are joining us remotely today. So as you can see here on the screen, I won't read through all this list per your request, but these are the group agreements for today's engagement. In order for us to have a productive discussion, respectful dialogue, here are the agreements that we are looking for. And as you are joining, please do make sure that you are tuning into the right channel. If you are a monolingual English speaker, please select the world-like interpretation icon at the bottom of your screen, then select English. If you are using Zoom via telephone or a tablet, you will select the 3 dots to see more options, followed by the interpretation, and then select English. For those of you who are listening in and need the instructions in Spanish, I'm going to pass it to my colleague Tania to provide us some instructions in Spanish.
Thank you. Buenas tardes a todos. Bienvenidos. Este es un recordatorio de que estamos proveyendo interpretación simultánea al español para esta reunión. Si usted ingresó con una computadora, va a ver el icono de un mundo en la parte de abajo de su pantalla. Por favor, seleccione el canal de español. Si usted está ingresando con un teléfono móvil o una tableta, va a tocar su pantalla, va a buscar los 3 puntitos, ya sea en la parte de abajo o de arriba. Seleccione donde dice interpretación de idioma. Después seleccione el canal de español y por último el botón que le diga done, listo o finalizar para que pueda escuchar completamente en español. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Tania. And now we should have interpretation available for everyone. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen for 1 second to add Tania. Okay, so interpretation should be live for everyone at this point. As I mentioned, we're very excited to have you all join tonight, Shafter Community Steering Committee. My name is Dr. Amy Ramos, and I will be facilitating tonight's CSC meeting for you. I'm joined by the Air District's Brian Hayashi. I'm looking at my screen, there you are. Welcome from the Air District. And my colleague Vanessa Gomez will also be joining us today. As you know, our team members from both teams, the Air District and Hardware & Company, are here to help you guide you through today's conversation. And in addition to that, if you have any technical support that you need, please feel free to reach out to us at any time and interrupt us. As you know, our job is to help facilitate a useful conversation so that we can all engage in the conversation and so that we can keep track of any action items through today's meeting. So please, again, don't hesitate to reach out. You can raise your hand, use the raise hand feature, or if you have any individual technology questions, you can direct message us on the chat and we can help figure that out with you. I'm very excited tonight to introduce our co-host, Anabel Marquez. We're extremely grateful to have another CSC member volunteer to co-facilitate a portion of today's meeting. So before we officially begin with our opening remarks, I'd like to pass it to Anabel to welcome us and to share some opening words. Anabel.
Hola, muy buenas tardes. Es un gusto participar con ustedes y en esta oportunidad de darle la bienvenida. Bienvenidos a todos. Esta es mi segunda vez, mi segunda vez que participo en darle la bienvenida. Ojalá que sea una junta con buenos resultados y que les guste la exposición que vamos a hacer de las vallas verdes. Es todo. Gracias.
Thank you, Annabelle, so much for those opening remarks. So as you know, I'd just like to remind you that we'd love and encourage all of our CSC members to volunteer to be a co-host for any of the CSC meetings. As you see, this is Annabelle's second or third time where she has stepped into the role as a co-host. And as a reminder, if you would like to be a co-host and you decide to participate, the level of engagement as a co-host is really up to you. For example, some co-hosts like to have a more active role and be co-facilitating throughout the meeting. Some folks like to have one agenda item. It really is up to you, and we work collaboratively with you and the Air District to figure out what's going to work best for you. So please, we encourage you to continue to think about co-hosting for the next meeting. And as a matter of fact, we don't have a community co-host for the November meeting. So if you're interested in being a co-host, we will remind you again to please let us know by the end of today's meeting. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again. And just to remind us of what we've agreed to have for our, not only our group agreements, but what we've agreed for our naming conventions. So before we get started, I know we're all very comfortable with Zoom, but there's always some new person or there's some technology glitches. So please remember to mute yourself and make sure that your full name and your organization are showing on your screen name. To change your screen name, you can click on the top right-hand side of your picture or video. So for example, Fermin is unmuted right now and we can mute him so we don't hear that extra noise. So make sure to keep yourself on mute if you are not speaking. As CSC members, please use the following naming convention. You're going to use CSC with your first and last name. So for example, you might write CSC-Jane Doe. And if you're a resident, you're going to write the letter R followed by your first and last name. All other participants, please feel free to write your first and last name with any affiliation that you may have. And you all are familiar with the naming convention that we have listed here for your reference. So as you know, we meet regularly to have an agenda debrief and agenda setting meeting. At our last meeting, we decided in collaboration with the Air District and the co-hosts to have today's agenda be as follows. And as a reminder, the draft agenda also goes out, so you all as community CSC members can provide any feedback when an agenda is sent out. For today's meeting, we will start with the welcome that we're in right now. We'll review our action item tracker. Please do note that we have a really packed agenda today, so we'll go through the agenda, through the action item tracker really quickly before we transition into the discussion on the draft SERP annual report. Then we'll have a very tailored update from the DPR. Then at 5:55, we'll have a presentation from Caltrans. At 6:15, we'll also hear a very tailored update from our Vegetative Barrier Subcommittee. And then at 6:30, we'll go through our standard standing update. And lastly, at 6:50, we hope to be able to wrap up on time and talk about next steps and any agenda setting discussion that we might have at that point. And then at that point, we'll also end with some public comments. Any questions about today's agenda or if anything that we've covered so far? All right, not seeing any questions. So at this time, I'd like to pass it to Ryan for any other welcoming remarks that you'd like to add.
No, don't have a lot. Thank you, Dr. Ramos. It's great to be here and seeing everybody tonight. And thank you so much, Annabelle, for sharing and for being a co-host tonight. And definitely look forward to hearing the feedback on that topic. Thank you to all the other partner agencies and everybody else for being in attendance and looking to continue to provide really important and key feedback on all the different topics. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Ryan. So as you all know, as Harder & Company continues to record our action items during the meeting, We do this to provide a level of accountability to all parties that are involved in the implementation of AB617. So from the Air District presenters to CSC members to whatever we share during these meetings, we like to document it and have a public record of the things that we all are committing to in order to implement AB617. As you know, at the top of the meeting, we like to review the action item tracker and to continue to monitor and track the progress. So to do just that, Zong is going to walk us through a quick update on some of the things that have been happening from our last meeting until today. Zong?
Thank you so much, Amy. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Hopefully everyone can see that all right. Let me know if I need to zoom in and make it bigger, but let's go ahead and get started. So our last meeting was September 12th, and the first action item here is that is still in progress or pending is our residential air filtration measure. We are still working on the project plan, and as soon as it's completed, we will definitely share that with the CSC. The next one was a request to revisit moving funds to the residential lawnmower measure, but we would be looking at that at the agenda setting meeting on November 21st. The next action item is a new updated flyer on our burn cleaner program, and we are finalizing it. And as soon as it's done, we will definitely share that with the CSC. The next one is a request for DPR to present to the CSC, and that is part of today's agenda. The CSC had some questions, so they will be here to answer some of those questions. The next action item is just a reminder that we did reach out to everyone either through email or phone calls in terms of our CSC membership renewal forms. If you haven't completed it, please go ahead and do that, or if you have any questions, please contact us, and we are almost done finalizing our membership renewal process. And then that's it for pending. And let me jump to the completed. We have a couple items that just I wanted to share. The first one is just that, we did meet for the Vegetative Barrier Subcommittee meeting on September 22nd, and we will provide an update later during tonight's meeting. And then also there was a request to include information from the van in our weekly monitoring reports. And I just wanted to show the CSC members where they can find that. So in the action items here, if you click on this link, it will take you to where the archives are on the weekly monitoring updates. And if you click here, on any of them really, you can see that the information is now included, and La Colonia is right here. So just wanted to share that with the CSC. Let me just go back. And I think that was it for our action items. If anyone had any questions, please let me know. I think that's it. Amy?
Great. Thank you, Zong. I'm not seeing any questions on the chat or anyone ready to unmute and ask questions. So thank you so much for walking us through the progress on those action items. Now we're going to take a moment to transition to talk about the draft SERP annual report. As you know, having an opportunity to review the draft SERP annual report is really important so that we can gather your feedback as the Air District is getting ready to submit this draft report to the governing board in November. So at this time, we're going to listen to a presentation from Ryan from the Air District about this draft report. It is expected that the Air Districts will work with the community steering committees to create a report that reflects community concerns and summarizes progresses, challenges, and the next steps. The report was sent out in the email that went to all of you when the agenda was set out, and it's available on the website. I'm going to go ahead and put the link to the draft report on the chat. If you all would like to follow on your own screen or use the screen that we'll share momentarily, you can do that on your own. And so as Orion reviews the SERP annual report, please keep in mind that it is a draft. So if you have any questions, please feel free to raise your hand. We'll be monitoring and prioritizing your questions. If you'd like to have questions or comments in the chat, please do that. And we can make sure that you, your voice gets heard and gets included. Ryan, would you like to have us interrupt you as you're talking, or would you like questions at the end? Whatever your style preference is, we will follow your lead.
Okay. So since this report is, quite lengthy, and my goal was to kind of highlight just some of the different components of the report, kind of give the background on what the report is intended for and what its use is. I know many of the steering committee members have heard this information in the past few years when we've brought these reports, and we've sought feedback about that in the past. And so let me go ahead by sharing the Spanish version of the report. Now keep in mind, we do have the English version as well. Or actually, I'll pull up, since I see Dr. Ramos, you shared the.
Yeah, both the English and the Spanish links are available for everyone. If you click on the comments, you can open the PDF version of either the English or the Spanish.
Yeah, and hard copies, I believe, were sent as well. So can everybody see the report?
Yeah.
Try to zoom in, make it big for everybody to see. So kind of going back, we're required by law to develop and put together and work with communities on annual reports of progress that is being taken place in these annual reports. And we always kind of view this as, the CSC members are involved in the ongoing implementation. Every month that we get together, we kind of give a rundown of where we are. We often go through the web tracker that I'm sure everybody is familiar with now, and that talks about on a month-to-month basis, how we're moving forward each of the numerous measures that are included in the chapter SERP. And so what this report tries to do is encompass the work that has been done over the past year. And I'm happy to say that every time that we put this report together, we take the feedback from the community steering committee members on how we can make this report more easily understood, be more informative for the intended audience, which is really like for communities and for people that aren't involved with the AB617 chapter process on a monthly basis. And so what we'd like to get is more feedback on how we can look to do that better. And so some of the changes that you'll hopefully have seen in this report, it's shorter than it has been in the past. More information has been put into like infographics, charts, things of that nature, which we've heard from all of you that's more easily, you can learn more from looking at it quicker than, kind of buried in a paragraph that, you have to spend a lot of time reading. And so we've definitely tried to make this report more usable to more people. And so, it's still extensive. I won't go through all of the different sections of it. But like I said, there's just been tremendous progress that's been done in working with all of you. Very excited about some of the more recent progress that we've had with, things like getting some of the paving projects approved and, lawnmower events and things of that nature. In addition to those types of things, the report also includes, the trackers themselves, which I talked about. So the report goes through each of the measures, but then also includes sorry, I have a PDF, so I'm gonna skip. It goes through the air monitoring progress, things like that. In addition to the specific measure progress. But here's what we like to highlight, and that I know you're so familiar with it, which is the trackers. And this really captures what we've done on each of the measures and how we're progressing on that, and that we use to help inform not only members of the public, but you on how we're doing and maybe where potentially we need to shift focus or move things. And you've provided us just invaluable feedback on those things, in assisting and moving these things forward. The last component of the annual report, which is very important, is a enforcement plan update. And so basically all of the enforcement activities, which there's a lot of commitments in doing more inspections at facilities that have violations. All of this information is also captured in the report. It lists the inspections that were performed at the different facilities within the boundary, in addition to notices of violation that were issued as part of those inspections. So please, in addition, if anybody wants to point out specific sections of this and wants to talk about it, definitely open to that. If you don't have any feedback tonight, what we are asking is if you can, by the end of the month, provide us in writing the comments and feedbacks that you have. And it doesn't even have to be in writing. If you want to, everybody has a great relationship with the Air District staff. If you feel more comfortable calling up and talking with someone, we're more than happy to take verbal feedback as well. So at this point, I turn it over to any questions, comments, feedback.
And just as a reminder, Ryan, none of the things in here should be brand new. It should sound familiar and it should represent the work that's been happening.
Yeah, so we regularly provide updates at the AB617 meetings, either through action items or just kind of going through the SERP tracker on a regular basis. So all the information that is in here has been shared with you, discussed with CSC members, and so the feedback is, how do we make this information more understandable, to people outside of this group that's going to be looking at this information.
Wonderful. I see Gus. Yeah, thank you, Ryan, for clarifying that. Gus Jr.
Hey, how's it going? Good evening, everyone. Yeah, thank you so much, Ryan, for this overview. And this report is going to go to the Valley Air District's board.
Correct. Yeah, each year the report has to be presented to the board.
Right.
That's also part of the CARB blueprint.
Cool. And I see here, I opened up the PDF here based on the link. I'm on page 34, 35 on the enforcement plan summary of complaints.
Yes.
And so essentially 3,000 public air pollution complaints. Is that valley-wide or is that in 617 at the
no, so that's district wide. So
district, okay. Yeah. Okay, and then from the complaints, I see here 2001 to 2002. It's like per year, and these are the total complaints on page E35. Yes. That's a summary of all the violations within the 6 mile radius.
No, these are a listing of just the complaints. So if anybody filed a complaint and it fell within the 6 mile boundary, they are listed here.
Okay, the violations are the pages that come after that. The violations found.
Correct. The summary of violations start on page 36, or 37. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think
these are violations that have been issued to individuals or businesses within that same 6 mile boundary.
I see. Okay, so where the type.
I'm sorry, it's really small.
No worries. Yeah. So the type. Yeah. It's a lot of information, but it's good. Like this is, I'm thankful for the amount of information. I just want to make sure I know what I'm looking. Yeah, we know what we're looking at. So the NOV type, that's there was an inspection done and there was a violation that happened.
Correct. So let me try to zoom in here a little bit, so hopefully everybody can see a little bit better. So in the first column, it's the date of that the violation was issued. We have two different types of enforcement action that we take typically. One is the notice of violation. This is there's the first one's the notice to comply, and that's basically like a fix-it ticket. Where it's not emissions. Those are typically paperwork related, where the district can still determine compliance with our rules and regulations. However, there may be certain like paperwork things that just weren't done that is required by their permit. So in limited situations, we're able to issue notices to comply. In other situations where there's emissions, violations, and where we can't determine compliance, that's when we issue what are called notices of violation. And these include a monetary penalty. And so when people get notices of violation, that also includes a monetary penalty. And so in the second column, it lists whether it was a notice of violation or a notice to comply. The third column is the violation number itself. And then the next column is who it was issued to. Our district facility ID is the identifier that we use for the business. And then the location, the description of the violation, and then the district rules that were violated.
Okay, cool. And I don't want to derail the conversation too much, but I am, as a CSC member of chapter, very interested. So I do see a good amount of like JP Oil and other folks, Plains, LPG, oil and gas operations that receive notice of violations. And so one thing that I'm interested in is, based on the certain measures that we had within the oil and gas, which included some electrification and I know we amended the flare rule, which part of the flare rule, I wish I could remember everything that happens, but like part of it, if I remember, part of it was like mitigation plans and reporting of flaring, etc. In a later date, I would definitely like to maybe, I know there's no subcommittee for oil and gas, but like to have a more in-depth conversation. And I want to obviously make sure that whatever conversation happens, the public is aware of like the amount of notice of violations to like say oil and gas, and a reflection of if the SERP strategies in Shafter that were focused around oil and gas have been implemented, and if they haven't, kind of the reasons of why not behind that.
Okay, no, that's good feedback. So kind of starting off with measures that were specific to oil and gas, and then kind of discussing whether or not those measures have been fully implemented or where they are with implementation.
Yes.
In addition to that, Gus, do you think it would be helpful to kind of discuss how facilities go about being inspected, like
I think
the different like equipment that we use, and it's pretty extensive. I think we have
there's nothing more that I would love to nerd out on something like that, but I don't know if that's a time that CSC members would, if they would, I mean, we could have a discussion, right? And if they do, then by all means. If not, we could create like a separate conversation, invite anyone and everyone at the CSC. But yes, essentially you're right, Ryan, and similar in theory to the pesticide is like we have all these different pesticide measures. What's happening with them? Are they actually being implemented, and if so, are we seeing differences, etc.?
Okay, all right. That's a great, we will definitely add that to the agenda item at the end that Dr. Ramos will cover. And I think, when we're having that discussion, we can, flesh out more what that looks like, but we'll definitely make note of that. Thanks, Gus.
Yeah, no, I appreciate, I will go over it, and I hope we have time to go over it with residents to see if they have any questions as well. So yeah, no, but I appreciate the report, and definitely we'll go over it.
Thank you so much, Gus. And this is a perfect opportunity for me to plug the debrief agenda setting meeting, right? So if you have an opportunity to review the report in advance of the debrief meeting, it would be great, Gus, and other CSC members, for you to come to the meeting and provide your input so that we can decide if you'd like to have this as an agenda item for the November meeting or for the December meeting. I had seen Annabelle's hand. Oh, there you are again. Go ahead, Annabelle and team. I know that you all are together.
No es comentario, es una pregunta. No sé si el Departamento del Aire sabe que la ciudad de Shafter tiene como 3 asadores públicos de 3 tiendas, que es un montón de humo, queman mucha leña desde jueves, viernes, sábado y domingo, 4 días. Asan pollos, asan costillas, asan carne para las tiendas, para vender ahí. Mi pregunta es, si a nosotros nos prohíben hacer barbecues en nuestra casa, o sea, no quemar nada, ¿ellos tienen permiso o la ciudad les dio el permiso para que ellos puedan gastar toda esa leña que tienen que quemar en 4 días, desde las 6 de la mañana hasta la noche? Nomás quiero saber, porque si a unos nos quitan una cosa, yo pienso que debe ser parejo. Es una pregunta nada más. Gracias.
Thank you, Annabelle. Great question. Ryan?
Yeah, thank you, Annabelle. And so I think what I understood that you were saying is there are 3 like local stores where there is some cooking going on outside, where they're using, you know, piles of wood to, I'm guessing, you know, smoked meats and cooked meats. And Annabelle, your question was, you know, is this legal? Is this allowed? I mean, do they need some type of permits? That's definitely a question that we can follow up with the city, if it's within the city limits, you know, whether that is something that's allowed from district rules. You know, wood that is being used for the purposes of cooking food, that is not considered open burning, and so that doesn't fall within, you know, under that rule or regulation. Where it could potentially come in would be if there was a nuisance situation that was being created as a result of the smoke. And so, you know, we have responded to situations where there's large amounts of smoke that...
Exacto, son como de 6 pies por 4 pies, por 3 pies. Entonces, no es un asador cualquiera. La chimenea de mi casa, salen ahí 8 chimeneas de ese barbecue. Es un cuarto de 6 por 3 o por 4. Que en realidad es demasiado humo, demasiado, porque pasas por la calle y el humo, como lo tienen en el parking lot, sale hasta la carretera. Entonces, no se me hace justo que ellos puedan tener esa quema de leña, porque es leña, y uno no pueda usar su asador o su chimenea, que nomás es en invierno y ellos todo el año. Creo que eso, por favor, tómenlo en cuenta y pónganlo en la agenda para la próxima junta, o si se puede contestar antes, mejor. Gracias.
Okay. Yeah, Annabelle, if you want to share the locations where they're doing the cooking, we will definitely look into that further, and we can provide an update. In regards, I just want to make sure that it's clear to everyone. And Annabelle was definitely talking about this, but I just want to make sure that everybody understands. We don't, you know, if you have a grill in your backyard, if you have a wood, a meat smoker in your backyard, the district does not regulate, you know, does not prohibit or does not allow you to use that.
No, yo sé que no lo no lo prohíbe.
Yeah.
Yo nomás quiero saber si está permitido, si a ellos se les permite quemar tanta leña, porque es mucha la leña.
Yeah.
Y es la localización está por la Chapter. Está por la Chapter. Una es la Apple Market, otra es la Hacienda Market y la que está allá por la Chapter. Fiesta Latina Market.
What was the last one? I'm
Si
sorry.
usted se da una vuelta o si Fiesta Market.
Yes.
Si se
Annabelle,
dieran una vuelta un fin de semana, iban a darse cuenta de todo el humo que sale. Y pueden mirar la inmensidad de los asadores.
Okay. We will definitely, I will forward that on to to our compliance department, and we will look into it and we will provide an update.
thank you, Ryan. And just to clarify, Annabelle, what you're asking is you'd like to know if there are any regulations in the amount of smoke that they can produce and if that is being enforced at all, if there's any rules whatsoever.
Yeah. So, I mean, for our rules, like I said, it's not subject to our open burning rule. Where it may fall under would be the nuisance. And so if we receive complaints filed by residents in Shafter in regards to the smoke impacting them, you definitely contact us and share our information out if you know if your neighbors or your friends or your family are being impacted and they don't know who to contact. Please forward that information on to us, and we will investigate it as it's happening. But we'll also look into what's going on at these 3 locations. And Annabelle.
Thank you so much, Ryan. And thanks to everyone for engaging in this conversation. So it sounds like we all have a little bit of homework. So all of the CSC members and public, of course, is encouraged to read the draft SERP annual report. And please do submit your feedback via email, or if you feel more comfortable calling the Air District directly. The Air District is happy to take your calls and to listen to your feedback and make those modifications into the annual report. In addition to that, it sounds like there are potential proposed agenda items for our November meeting. So we do expect to see some of you at our agenda debrief and setting meeting that we'll have next week. So with that said, we're now going to transition into providing some updates from the Department of Pesticide Regulation. So as you all shared during the September meeting last month, one of our CSC members asked questions specifically to the Department of Pesticide Regulation, or DPR staff. And as you know, many of you had several questions that at the moment couldn't be answered simply because Department of Pesticide Regulation didn't have an entire agenda item, right? As you know, as you saw the agenda, we have numerous updates that all happen within 50 minutes. So sometimes we just run out of time and don't have sufficient time allocated for us to have a good discussion. So based on your feedback, we have moved things around in the agenda so that DPR can have a full 20 minutes or so to entertain your questions, to hear from you directly, so for you all to voice your concerns and have a direct conversation with the Department of Pesticide Regulation. As we understand, this is the topic that is not only a passionate topic, but it's a topic that we all care about because it impacts our own well-being and the well-being of the community. So as we're listening to the updates from the Department of Pesticide Regulation, please do listen for understanding. So be attuned to what's being shared and be ready to share your questions, concerns, and any comments that you have by raising your hand or adding your questions on the chat. And I'll be sure to make sure that everybody's questions are answered. So we have a few folks from DPR, so I'm not sure who's going to, oh, there you are. So I'll pass it over to DPR to guide us through their update.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having us today. We have few slides that we prepared to share with you, updating about those questions that was asked during the last meetings. going to try to share my screen here, and please let me know if you are able to see my screen.
Looks good on our end.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. Okay. Awesome. Okay. So the first question or first that we had last month was about the notification system. As we all know, DPR started the focus group for notification back in 2021. We are about a year away of starting to implement this system and trying to have the system implemented in 2024. There have been a few online workshop and webinar to share the update with the public and also ask for feedbacks, which was done in November 2021 and also in June 2022. And there's also another workshop in this coming November. Basically, that would help providing what's happening, and also get some feedback from the public, and that would help finalize the proposed system design and initiate the rulemaking process. Again, this notification system will be implemented to a rulemaking, and that's what all of these feedback, all of these workshops are important to be shared with the public, and also get some feedback from public as well. I'll have one slide specifically for those workshops. So it's very important for DPR to get feedback from the public. So if you are available, if you can attend to those workshops, that would be a good venue to provide your feedback so they can be implemented during the process. Okay. Next, about there were a pilot project for this notification system, and there were 4 projects. 3 of them are still underway. One of them, which was a Riverside County, they completed their pilot projects. All of the data from these projects will be evaluated by the Center for Regional Change at University of California, Davis. And all of these data that they were able to collect during this pilot project will help them to develop the statewide system, and also during the rulemaking process and making the regulation. Next slide. There were a few items that were discussed and trying to implement, or at least include them in their evaluation in terms of which pesticides should be included in the notification system. One of the factors that is being considered is which the impact of those pesticides on our health. For example, in a specific, it would be like those restricted materials, which would be included in the notification system. There would be language access that they're working on, trying to have. DPR is committed to have both English and Spanish language in the system. In terms of advanced notice, in terms of how advanced they can provide those notification. There are a lot of factors that needs to be thought in that process, giving the grower enough time to check the pressure, the pest pressure, and the timing of that application, and preparing the notice to be provided to the public. As far as I've heard, the target is at the minimum 24 hours, but they are still thinking about this one to have a solid timeline for those advanced notice. And user privacy, it's very important for DPR to have the privacy. We have the department's privacy policy that I can share in the chat. There are a lot of things that needs to be considered to have the user's privacy field, and basically few things that I am aware of it. There won't be any no need for like putting your name or address to use the system. All the details still not available, but whenever they are available, it would be published on DPR's website, and everyone can have access to it. Next slide, which I wanted to make sure that I have one single slide for this one. There would be notification workshops next month in November. There are 3 workshops, one November 7 in Oxnard, one in November 9 in Tulare County, and one in November 10 that will be virtual on Zoom. So if this system is important, if it's something that you are looking forward to make a comment or provide feedback, that's the opportunity to attend this workshop and provide your feedback and share what is your thought with our department. So all of those feedback and comment can be incorporated in the thought process of this rulemaking. Next slide. That's about our AMN. As you all know, DPR has 4 AMN stations statewide. One of them is located in Shafter, in Sequoia Elementary School. Shafter is one of our longest site that we have in AMN. We have been here since the beginning of the project, and we are committed to stay here as long as we are here and we are working in DPR. We try to update our website based on whenever we receive our data from the lab. We do a quality control on that one. Once we are sure that all the data are correct, then we update our database. I have the link here if needed. I can also share the link in the chat so you all can have access to it. Again, we are here. Any comments, anything, if you need the data, if you wanted us to trim the data for you and send it to a specific email or address, we are here to share all of our monitoring data with you for your community or any other community that we have data for. And last but not least is the 1.3D rulemaking process. We are in process of adopting the regulation for 1.3D, which will address both acute and cancer risk. We are anticipating to have the notice to be posted in November. When we do that, there will be a public comment period. The public comment period will go to January, mid or late January. The exact date is not set yet. Once we have it, we'll have it in our website, or if we have any meetings, we will share those dates with you with this group. And again, whenever we have more information about the notice, about any date or public comment, we'll make sure that we have all of those information published on our website so everyone can access to those information. And I believe that's the end of my few slides, providing update about those question and topic. Again, whenever you have question, I'm here to answer any question. My boss is also here if I cannot answer those questions. And after this meeting, if you have more questions or need something more, this is our phone number and email address. You can always reach out to us, and we would be more than happy to help you with any of those questions. With that, I'm going to open the floor to any question that you might have.
Thank you so much for that overview of some of the things that you've shared in previous meetings. I'm seeing that Gus has his hand raised. Please go ahead, Gus.
Yes, thank you so much, thank you, Mazir, for that overview and the presentation. And so, essentially, in theory, the pesticide notification will be out and running in 2024. From here till then, only 2 public workshops in the entire state will be held. That's in Oxnard and in Orosi.
2 in person, 1 virtual.
one
That would be the
virtual.
workshop to start the regulation process. So there would be a hearing to share what's going to happen. That would be the starting point.
Okay.
In between, and that would be the rulemaking process, which based on the rulemaking and the law, there might be other hearings as well. But this is what's happening to initiate the rulemaking process.
Okay, so okay, I get it. So this is to start the rulemaking process, and then independently, DPR is going to go in with EPA and partners and start the actual rulemaking process of how this, the rulemaking process of how the notification will be rolled out. Correct?
Exactly. Yes.
Okay, and maybe this is a little bit too early, but there was a slide on like it will be like what the pesticide notification will be doing, and it was like 3 things. One will be the location notification, and then like user. Can you go back to that slide, please? One more. There. Okay.
Yeah.
So the notification itself will have language access, so it will be able to be read in English and Spanish and other languages. Will be notified. It will be a notice, obviously, so some kind of notification system. I see user privacy, and I know ultimately the ag commissioners will have some kind of responsibility, right? Through DPR, they'll have some kind of authority or responsibility. But do we know if there will be an ability, like, I don't know if I don't know, because we don't know if it's going to be an application or something else. But if there is an opportunity to like make reports of pesticide drift and other stuff using this system. So I'm thinking like maybe like what are multimedia approaches that we could have that could happen around this already built notification.
I think I know what the question is. Those workshops, those hearings, those are exactly for these type of questions. To be honest, I don't have all of those detailed answer, and that's why we have those hearings, that the work group who are working on this regulation will answer all, or will share all of those details during the hearing. And also there would be a regulation text available which details all of these information in the text that we all can read through it, and if you have any feedback or comment, we can provide feedback. My boss is also here. If I'm going to open the floor to him if he has anything else he wants to add.
Okay. Yeah, and just my last request, Mazir, is
Sure.
So we're gonna have our next CSC will be after the November 9th ROSI meeting. So if just my personal request, if you could maybe have like in that agenda have a space for you to give us some, you or anyone else at DPR to give a summary of what that community meeting was like, some of the comments, or if that's possible.
I'll talk to my boss if that's something that we can do, and we have a meeting. Why not?
Cool, thank you.
Thank you so much. We'll make sure to write that down so that we can track that. Bianca, I see your hand up, but before I go there, I missed a comment from Steve on the chat that says temporary land use permits approved by the Planning Commission. Wanted to see if you can provide us with some clarity and see what the question was there.
Sure. Yeah, when it's regarding the barbecues at the Hacienda Apple Market, I believe the last one was the Fiesta. I know for the Apple Market and for the Hacienda that we approve temporary land use permits for those. We limit barbecues to those associated with markets, and it is generally renewed on an annual basis. Well, not generally, it is renewed on an annual basis. And after 5 years, the use has to cease and they have to find a new location. It's sort of what we have in our zoning ordinance regarding those sorts of uses. Anyway, I just wanted to provide clarity that is through the Planning Commission, is through a temporary land use process. And I can certainly provide Ryan with the staff reports and approvals regarding those. Regarding the Fiesta, I honestly don't know where that is, so I need the address, but the other two I know of.
Wonderful, thank you. And maybe I can ask Anabel if you all could put the address for the Fiesta Market in the chat. That would be really helpful so that we can simultaneously be working on that. And then we'll also note that as the action item to for Steve's office to send those documents over to the Air District. Bianca, go ahead.
Sorry, I have a crying baby over here. But one of the things I wanted to add in the meeting for DPR, are they going to also speak to about the Shafter pilot that we were trying to do here locally, or is that going to be just statewide? Because we essentially started the whole statewide notification because of Shafter not being implemented at the moment, and we want some updates from DPR as a statewide. What are they going to do here in Shafter? Because we do have money allocated here, and we haven't seen any changes.
Mint, do you want to answer that one? I believe when we have the statewide notification, that would be for the entire state. But if there's anything for Shafter specific, I'm not aware of it. If you want to unmute yourself and add more information, we appreciate that.
Yeah, I can take that. So Bianca, yes, as Mazir mentioned, the focus is for a statewide notification, and we were trying to get as much input from across the state as possible from the various different community groups and different regions across the board. That's why the pilot was introduced. As far as the actual, I think the conversation of us starting the Shafter localized pilot, it didn't make sense in the grand scheme of us going for the statewide notification. It actually would have slowed up the implementation of the statewide notification. So we decided that we would focus specifically on the statewide so that we can implement it across the board unilaterally and then input concerns from all the different regions into it. I don't know if additional conversations were had for anything else, but that was what we were essentially charged with doing. So essentially focusing to get this regulation implemented and going by 2024, and just making sure that it's the system works and is out there for everybody.
Bianca?
I also wanted to add if they're going to add another pilot communities, if Shafter could be one of them, or after finishing all the pilots, the 4 counties, is DPR going to go back and actually look at in a different way of piloting, or what's the idea for next year?
So the idea is, taking a step back here, the pilot project initially was to implement various different background technologies and kind of facilitating the different asks and different pressures from communities across the state. Our intention is to use all those lessons learned to implement a statewide notification, and to make it forceful, regulable, and enforceable, we have to make it a regulation. So at this time, there won't be any additional pilot study. The pilot study will influence our decision making, as Mazir mentioned in the presentation there. When the workshop happens, there will be an introduction of what the regulation will look like, the system that they're going to be putting out that will be available for everybody, and that's kind of where you'll get the glimpse of what the system is, how it works, and all that good stuff. And that's where the public comment period will come into play. If there's something in there that isn't being addressed, or some sort of question, that would be where we would kind of shore up the process. Because the statewide regulation and regulation packages, I think, as everybody is aware of here, take a long time to implement. We wanted to get it right the first go around. So that's why a lot of work was done on the front end here, is to make sure that we heard everybody's voices, including this community here. A lot of traction came from the Shafter community, and a lot of great, feedback and lessons learned came from here. So all those were dug in. Mazir also mentioned that an independent third party will be evaluating the 4 pilots, the UC Davis Research Group. So they're actually going to go through and do a separate study, letting us know what's being asked, what people are wanting, and what is feasible for implementation. And then we're going to have our report as well. So all those things will come together once the rulemaking takes place shortly.
Thank you, Ming, for that update. And just as a reminder, the Arvin Lamont CSC meeting does have a pesticide subcommittee meeting that is meeting, and there will be an invitation for some of the Shafter CSC folks to join that. So we'll hear more from them when time comes. Bianca, I see your hand raised again.
Annabelle had a question in regards to the grills, the smokers. Is the air district gonna measure how much emissions are they doing, or they're just because they're under a contract, they're not allowed to be tested of how contaminating they're doing in the Shafter community?
Yeah, Bianca, at this time, we didn't have any plans on doing any air monitoring for that. I know there have been, not necessarily in Shafter, but there have been historical studies on what cooking emissions are from those types of operations. And, we could pull that together and share that kind of information out.
Is there any CERP for grills like that, or that could help out reduce the emissions?
Yeah, unfortunately, to my knowledge, for outdoor grills, like things of that nature, I don't know if there's any practical or developed control technology to really capture and eliminate those emissions. That's definitely an area that right now the focus is on some of like the restaurants that do this business on a regular basis. It's like potentially adding controls to the restaurant itself, and that's like still in kind of the earlier stages, and we're trying to get partners to install those pieces of equipment. I think if there's something that's developed, then maybe if it could be transferred to an outdoor setting, that may be something that's looked at, but that would probably be years down the road. Like I said, right now we're trying to get restaurants to consider these types of controls, and we have incentive funding we have technology advancement funding to do some of those projects. It's definitely an area that we're looking at very closely.
Thank you, Ryan. And it sounds like bringing forward some of that content, expertise, or knowledge about the emissions that are produced by smokers or those commercial grade barbecues might be something that could be distributed at subsequent meetings. All right, thank you so much. So now we're going to transition into talking about the Informational Freight Mobility Plan presentation from Caltrans. So in this next section, we're going to have a discussion and feedback session that's going to be led by Caltrans regarding its update to the California Freight Mobility Plan. And as you're listening to the presentation and discussion, we do have 2 guiding questions that we would like folks to keep in mind as you're kind of processing the content that's being presented. And one is, what freight impacts do you experience in your community? What projects do you think should be a priority for your community? To have those in mind as you're listening to the presentation. One thing that I do want to stress is that Caltrans is here to give this informational presentation to engage in a conversation with all of you as part of the CSC. So that means that today's informational presentation is designed to present you with customized public service announcements that will allow you to have a better understanding of the processes that are happening in the Shafter community. And most importantly, it is a tailored time for you to have your questions answered by Caltrans. It is not necessarily a session where we're going to have maybe the answers that we want, or have new action, or have a new decision that happened during today's meeting. We will, however, be noting down your questions, and if there is a recommendation or an action item for Caltrans to then go and address those questions, make some decisions within their department and come back to the CSC, we will document those things so that we can keep track of the conversation. So with that said, I'm going to pass it to Jeff to guide us through his presentation. Jeff, would you like me to hold questions till the end of your presentation, or would you like me to just kind of interrupt you when we have questions as they arise?
Yeah, hi, Amy, and thank you for the great introduction. I think we have 2 slides where we were going to have a discussion. Maybe once I reach those slides, we can begin the discussion, if that's okay with the committee. And I will share my screen right now.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah, I want to thank the Shafter Community Steering Committee for the opportunity to present today. My name is Jeff Morneau. I'm a senior transportation planner with Caltrans in Sacramento, and I am the project manager for the California Freight Mobility Plan 2023. But before I go into the details of the plan, I just wanted to go into some fun facts. And you know, freight is such a huge part of California. It's a huge part of our economy. And just for instance, the San Pedro Bay ports provide 1 in 9 jobs in the LA region. And overall, the twin ports create 3 million jobs nationwide. And they also moved roughly about 19 million containers. And the top 4 imports from those 2 ports are furniture, apparel, electronics, and plastics. And that's just one small piece of the freight system in California. And of course, this Shafter is in the Central Valley, so you're all aware of the incredible impact that agriculture has to the Central Valley. And freight plays a major role in moving that agriculture to and from the Central Valley for exports and for consumption in California and in the United States. So freight has a huge impact to California and the country. Freight impacts our communities. You know, freight, when I say freight, I'm talking about anything that moves goods, and that includes trucks, the ships at the ports. That could include airports, and it could include railroads as well. And there are other new emerging types of freight as well, such as cargo bikes and drones and things like that. So freight affects our communities. Freight goes through our neighborhoods, and freight provides food to our communities. It provides cars and goods to our communities. It provides medicine, such as during the pandemic. Freight was essential for bringing the vaccines to our hospitals, and also the personal protection equipment. So freight is used on a regular basis for the things we consume every day, but also for emergencies. Freight has a lot of benefits for our communities, but there are also negative impacts to our communities from the freight sector. Communities like yours, close to heavy freight industry activity, are disproportionately impacted by freight through emissions, which could potentially cause asthma, cancer, and cardiovascular disease. Traffic congestion, which could create idling, and that could create emissions and reduced economic productivity in your community. Freight could also cause noise impacts to your communities as well, which could cause hearing loss, sleep disruption, and interfering with the learning process for your children. And also, sometimes trucks park illegally where they're not supposed to, and sometimes truck parking can be a major issue for some communities. So what we're working on at Caltrans, and what I'm personally managing right now, is the 2023 California Freight Mobility Plan. This is a statewide plan that includes the Central Valley, but also the LA region, San Diego, Northern California, the Bay Area. So the entire state. The purpose of the plan is to provide a long-term vision, goals, and objectives for California's freight future. And the plan wants to identify the immediate and long-range planning activities and capital investments by the state with respect to freight movement. And also critically, we want the plan to identify ways to reduce freight impacts to communities while maintaining California's economic competitiveness. And this is like I said, this is a statewide freight plan, and we update it every 4 years, and every state is required to create a freight plan. So this is actually federally required. So the question is, why am I here today? Well, I'm reaching out to AB617 communities, community steering committees throughout the state, and presenting to them, and trying to get your feedback so that we can incorporate that feedback into the plan. We're trying to develop strategies in the plan that reduce freight impacts to communities, such as air pollution and noise pollution. We're trying to improve freight efficiency and competitiveness so that we can create jobs and keep costs low in our communities. And you get things on a timely, you get goods like groceries and your packages to your house on a timely basis. Also, we want to create education programs that support the freight workforce, like education programs for trucking, for instance, for truckers. And also, we want your input to inform project nominations and funding for projects that could improve freight throughout California. So I did have just 2 questions. And these are just static questions and hopefully can spur a discussion. One of the questions was, which of the following freight impacts do you experience in your community? And it doesn't have to be on this list. You could think of other impacts that affect your community, but some of these impacts could include truck traffic congestion, truck parking on residential streets, air pollution, truck driver safety, such as trucks there sharing the roads with your car, with passenger cars, damaged road and pavements that's caused by trucks, noise pollution. So really, I just wanted to ask the question to the group: can you think of any ways? Can you tell me any ways in which negative freight impacts that you experience in your community currently? And of course, if there's no feedback now, I'm always willing to accept feedback over email or through a one-on-one interview. I'm happy to accept that as well. Are there any hands raised?
I'm not seeing any right now, but I know folks have answers to this question. So when you're thinking about freight impacts, which ones do you experience, Linda?
Hi, Jeff. This was something that I had brought up a long time ago, actually, when CARB came down for our visit when we were first starting the AB617. As far as the freight impacts with the train, is that what you would like to know about?
Yes, either from trucks or trains or airports or anything.
My biggest complaint with the train, and it has improved, but it used to be that they would literally block the entire town. They would keep rolling. I don't know if there's a rule to where if they completely stop, but it was almost like they would roll forward, roll back, roll forward, we're back. Now, this caused a lot of pollution in our area because of the cars that were backed up. So the train tracks, as you know, go right through our town. It would cause an enormous backup at Los Angeles and Beach, that intersection to the south of town where cars were really backed up. It caused a big traffic jam at Lerdo Highway. That's a very heavily traveled area between Central and Lerdo. I did voice my concerns, and I believe there was help from CARB because it actually creates a safety issue. Emergency vehicles cannot get across because it's blocked so bad. And you even have to go all the way to the north of town to try and get over at Fresno, which is a huge inconvenience. Like I said, it's gotten a little better, but as a resident here, that has been my biggest complaint about the train. Is it blocking literally the entire, it blocks Lerdo, it blocks just north in downtown, it blocked it because there was 2 trains that would just go back and forth. It was super frustrating. That's my biggest one. The damage to the roads and the pavement caused by trucks. If you were to drive, and I'm happy to show you if you're ever down this way, the high-speed rail that they're putting in Wasco, they've diverted a lot of the truck traffic onto the farm roads. They're horrible. It's so bad. I have to like slow my car down because the holes in the road. I don't know how Kern County Public Works is working this out with high-speed rail. I do see crews out there trying to fix it, but the holes in the road are growing faster than I think the repairs can happen. I know that there was Rob Ball that came onto our air board group to discuss a reroute, and it was supposed to come up through, I'm sorry, it's escaping my name, the name of the road. It was going to come out by Rio Bravo Greeley and come up and then travel over through Cherry. I highly suggest looking into that. It's a super dangerous intersection. You can barely, the way the railroad track is, and I'm talking about the road just to the north of the cemetery off of Central. It's this tiny angled road. It is, you can barely sit there in a car without getting rear-ended when the railroad tracks come down. I can't imagine having that be a reroute for heavy duty trucks because it would be so dangerous. There's no way that a semi truck could ever cross that on a reroute. The other thing with that is I just want to make sure everyone's talking, if there is a reroute with trucks, to Kern County roads to make sure that the funding's there, because you're going to route all these big heavy trucks up farm roads that aren't made for that. And we're going to get the same problem that we're having with high-speed rail to the north of Shafter. I think it's Merced Avenue and a few others. Like if you were to ever come into town, I am more than happy to show you the destruction to the roads that's happening with these reroutes from the high-speed rail. It's really sad what's going on to the roads. Let's see, what else did you have here? The noise pollution with the train, not my favorite. But I know they have to honk. It's a lot of honking as they come through town. Let's see here, truck traffic. But yeah, those are some of my concern, is just, some of these reroutes that they were proposing, and how the train stops through town. I really do feel like it's a safety issue at some point when it's blocked that long. I know that Shafter has put an app up. I don't know how many people know about that, where we were supposed to, if you were stopped by the train, take a picture and note how long they've been stuck there. But I'm happy to show you around town if you're ever down this way. Thank you.
No, thank you. Those are excellent comments. And I wasn't aware of how high-speed rail had diverted truck traffic.
Yeah, it's really bad on the back end of when you come down Kimberlina and you make a right, it's got this reroute. It's down to a single lane. There's 2 traffic lights on that road. That road had 2, it would have end dumps. I believe that's what those are called, moving all the dirt. And so I'm in a little car, and it's not fun when you're on a little tiny farm road and you've got semi trucks with end dumps, just one after another going through. It was a little scary, and you could see where there's holes in the road, and then on the side of the roads, it's just gotten eaten away from that truck traffic.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's something we'll have to see firsthand, hopefully. Yeah, that's great.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Linda. Does Michelle have her hand up?
Yes, I do. The other Shafter is uniquely located on Laredo and Central Valley Highway. When it hits Shafter, it's Highway 43, but we have a lot of traffic that comes through our area that really adds no commerce to what we're doing. Where they're just passing through from Wasco going to Bakersfield or from I-5 to get to 99. And I mean, it would be great if they were shopping at all our stores and bringing commerce in, but they just are passing through, and that causes a lot of traffic and congestion. And and Linda's right. When the rail guards are around, you should see how fast we learn to beat it around all those rail guards, which is creating more traffic and unsafe traffic. And so that's just another thing. It's one thing if it was bringing commerce, but they just kind of are speeding on through.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a grade separation issue that needs to be addressed. Yeah, thank you, Michelle. I appreciate it.
Go ahead, Linda.
I'm sorry. There was one more thing I thought of. I've brought this up before too. The intersection at Central and Laredo. I know that high-speed rail is probably coming and we're supposed to get to some things fixed. It is a dangerous intersection even in a car. Like, I stop to look to make sure, and I mean, you have to really turn to make sure that no one's blowing the light. There is no safe place to cross, and I know I'm getting a little far away from what you probably want, but the sidewalk infrastructure over the railroad tracks is non-existent. On the north end, there's a sidewalk that stops, but it doesn't continue. And then on the south end, there's nothing. And it's a very weird intersection. If you can Google Earth it to look at it, it's very dangerous. And I keep bringing this up because I'm worried about, we're putting in Shafter a new sports complex, meaning that a lot of the kids from the other side of town are going to be crossing in that area. Right now, they can go through the middle of the town to get to where our Parks and Recs is. And I'm just very worried of them crossing that area. That particular railroad crossing in the car is a little bumpy. In Wasco, if you were to use that railroad, and I know we're getting out of AB617 area, but that crossing north of the labor camp is horrendous. It's really bad over the railroad tracks. So I know that there was a time when I was walking my kids in a stroller, the railroad crossing at Shafter Avenue by Apple Market, that intersection, I had a double stroller, my little tire got stuck and I could not get it out. And I had my two kids. Talk about a mom panic. Since then, I'm hoping they fixed it. I didn't really know who to contact at the time, but, having the railroad keep track of the holes, when people are crossing, because a lot of kids actually cross right there at Shafter Avenue to go to the high school over, that Apple Market intersection, just to make sure that there's safe areas to walk. So, I mean, they don't get stuck in it. I know I got my stuck in a stroller. So, and I mean, it was years ago, but, just to make sure that those areas are always kept walkable. Thank you so much.
Well, you may want to reach out to KernCog. They may have some information for safe routes to school and the active transportation program. Those are programs that fund walking infrastructure and
Okay.
And bicycle infrastructure as well.
What about when it is a railroad track though, and that area is, how the pavement will come up and it makes a hole? Like, who's responsible for that? Is that the railroad company or is that the city?
Honestly, it depends on what right of way that's happening within. They would have, it depends on where it's happening. Yeah.
Linda, this is Steve Esselman. Yeah, it's over there right away. It's BNSF.
Okay. So when things like that happen and I see where, there's holes in it that are unsafe, who do we contact you, Steve, at the city, and then you talk to BNSF? Or
yeah, if there's something unsafe, let us know.
Okay.
Let us know. And if we don't have jurisdiction, we're going to let BNSF know, hey, this lady got her stroller caught in your right of way. Let's talk about that.
Okay. it was a couple years ago, but
Yeah. I mean, honestly, the best person to talk to about anything that's related to potholes, things like that, is to talk to the Public Works Department. Get a hold of them, and they'll be able to inform streets, who's the one that will do maintenance on streets if it's in our jurisdiction, or inform Kern County if it's in theirs, particularly that. So, I mean, if you want to get the ball rolling, start squeaking a little bit at Public Works. Hey, these roads are getting to the point where it's getting pretty choppy and dangerous. We got to do something about this. And but if you want to just email me, I can certainly forward it on to the Public Works Department. Okay.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you both. And I see Michelle has her hand raised. Before we go there, Angie had a comment. So the intersection of Lerdo Highway and Cherry Avenue will soon need a traffic light or stop signs. Semi-truck use has increased in newer businesses at the industrial park. Trucks constantly pull out onto oncoming traffic with no regard to current traffic flow. So that is a concern for you to note, Jeff. And Michelle, we have time for one more question or comment. Please go ahead.
Yes, a couple of years ago, they added turn lights on Central Valley Highway. I don't know who's in charge of them, but I really don't think they're set appropriately for the traffic flow. We used to do a lot better without the turn lanes. They're just not set right, and I noticed it at all three of our turn lanes. And if someone could look into that to make sure they're set right for the actual better flow of traffic, that would be awesome.
Great. Thank you. Those are some great comments. I'll just move on to the next slide. I do have one more question. So what projects do you think should be a priority in your community? And that includes rail crossing safety projects, air quality improvement projects, freight job creation or job training programs. Would you like to see projects that increase zero emission charging, like stations and infrastructure? Truck congestion relief, so that there's less congestion on the roads, and also truck parking, or any other projects that we haven't considered in this list. Are there any projects, do you think, any freight related projects you think should be a priority within your community? Any hands? Well,
We've got one.
Got Michelle. Okay. Hi, Michelle.
Well, when you read through these, I would say a little of all of them, Linda talked about the rail crossing safety. Of course, we're here because of our air quality. I don't know freight job creation, what that really means, but, I know the city's working on charging stations and, the traffic coming through our town that's not really our commerce would be nice to relieve some of the congestion. And the city works really hard about the truck parking to make sure they're not where they're not supposed to be, but I know that's a struggle for them too. So probably a little of all of them.
Great. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I agree. Well, great. Thank you so much for your feedback on these two questions. And of course, we're always willing to talk more offline. I'll have my contact information at the end. There we go. So yeah, my office has a freight planning newsletter that we encourage everyone to subscribe to. You can see what our office is working on, and also the latest updates for the California Freight Mobility Plan. We're going to have, the plan is going to be available in March for a public review period. So I'm sure that will be announced statewide. And also, if you subscribe to our newsletter, you can see any updates that are happening for the CFMP. And also we have a webpage that's linked on this PowerPoint that was sent out So we encourage you to visit. And once again, my name is Jeff Morneau. I'm the CFNP Program Manager at Caltrans, and feel free to contact me if you have any further questions or concerns. So thank you so much for your time. And Amy, did you say there was, we were going to have some time for any general questions, or?
Yeah, I think we have, just a moment for any other general questions that you have. Well, we have Jeff's attention right now.
Great.
So as you all are thinking, just want to take a moment to thank you, Jeff, and the entire Caltrans team for coming and giving this overview. I think it's really important to continue that open dialogue. And we would anticipate that you and other Caltrans folks would continue to join our meetings as needed. Any questions from the CSC members at this time before we transition to our next agenda item?
Appreciate the overview.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to present.
Great, thank you, Jeff. Hearing a lot of positive feedback on the presentation today. So we welcome you and invite you to come back to our meetings in the future. And with that said, I'm going to transition us to our next agenda item, which is receiving an update from the Vegetative Barriers Subcommittee meeting. So I want to start by sharing that this is really exciting news. Our subcommittee has been meeting and doing a lot of the heavy lifting in between the CSC meetings, right? So these meetings happen once a month, and there's a lot of work to give momentum to some of these action items that have to get done in between the CSC meetings. And the Chapter Vegetative Barriers Subcommittee has done just that. So I'm in a moment going to pass it to Anabel and Bianca to provide us an update on what's been happening on the Vegetative Barriers Subcommittee meeting. And as you are listening to those updates, you might think about, what are you all finding helpful about the mapping tool that they'll be showing? What is not helpful? How should progress be monitored and reported back? Right, so today we have a full agenda item to give you an update. Is this something that we want to keep on the agenda? Are there different ways where you might want to receive an update? And what are some upcoming opportunities for CSC members to engage in the subcommittee? So Anabel, as you're providing these updates, think about how you want to continue to engage CSC members in the ongoing work that you're doing. So I'm going to pass it to Anabel and Bianca. Looking at my screen here, trying to see you all. There you are. Go ahead and take it away.
Hola, buenas tardes. Song, can you put the presentation?
Can you guys see it?
Yes.
Perfect.
So here we have what community members did a while back ago. We went around the community to find locations where green barriers should be needing, and also examples of how good green barriers could protect communities. And I'll have Annabelle describe a little bit.
Sí, miren, como pueden ver, esas plantas son muy productivas, no necesitan tanto trabajo ni tanta agua. Algunos rancheros ya la tienen. Nosotros la conocemos como laurel. Eso no deja pasar el polvo para nada. Cubre muy bien y no necesita tanto mantenimiento. Y es una planta muy barata. O sea, no es cara. Cualquiera se puede comprar por bonches, por bastantes. Y una plantita puede abarcar hasta que unos 12 pies, 20 pies, depende. Pones seguidos los puedes plantar de 2 pies por separado y te cubre todo lo que ustedes quieran. Puede cubrir hasta la vista de un field. Y los rancheros creo que lo pueden hacer porque no necesita mantenimiento. Es más, no necesita ni riego tampoco. Solo ustedes lo han visto, no sé si son un poco, ¿cómo se diría? Si son un poco observativos cuando pasan el Freeway 99, si se fijan a la mitad de los freeways, ida y venida, hay esas plantas. Y estas plantas están aquí en Shafter en algunos rancheros. Entonces, se nos hizo bastante bien porque la pueden poner el tamaño que ellos quieran y de lo ancho que quieran porque eso es inmenso. Y es una planta muy barata. A mí se me hizo para nosotros poderla conseguir o que la consigan los que se van a encargar de eso, sería magnífico. Y, adorna porque hay de varios colores. Hay rojo, hay blanco y hay rosa. Y es ornamental y aparte es cubridor y protege el polvo que no salga a las carreteras.
Next slide. Long.
Si se pueden fijar, yo no soy muy alta, pero si se pueden fijar qué tanto pueden dejarlo de alto y qué tanto pueden dejarlo de ancho. Es cubridor, muy, muy cubridor y adorna bastante. A mí se me hizo bien. ¿Pasa la otra? Si se fijan, los árboles sí cubren ahí, pero el espacio de abajo, donde es donde pasa el polvo, la contaminación y todo, queda al descubierto. En cambio, esas plantas cubren por la parte de abajo, que es lo que necesitamos, y no nos cubre el polvo, el paso cuando vas manejando. O sea, tienes el campo libre para poder manejar y no provocar accidentes.
Next.
Son partes de aquí de la ciudad de Shafter y la colonia mexicana, que también ya las tienen. Lástima porque lo tienen en una parte, pero de la otra parte están las casas al descubierto. Entonces sería bueno que se cubriera alrededor de los files.
Next.
Si se fijan cuánto, ahí nomás es más o menos una idea que se pueden dar de lo cubridor que es y hasta dónde lo pueden extender. No hay límite. Esa planta es dócil porque produce bastante, ajá, y con poco dinero. No les iba a salir muy caro porque es de la planta más corriente y más barata. Y más. Aparte. Se fijan de esta parte cómo están descubiertas las casas. Una parte está cubierta, pero lástima porque al frente hay casas y ahí continúan los files y está descubierto. Aparte, si se dan cuenta, el carro o el tractor que pasa para los pistachos o las almendras no se obstruye el paso. Ellos pueden trabajar fácil, libremente, no les molesta para nada porque es algo retirado y lo pueden mantener a la orilla de la carretera. No es para que a los rancheros digan que no, que porque no pueden pasar, pero sí se puede.
Next.
Hay rancheros que tienen su cerco, pero si se fijan, el cerco está al descubierto. No tiene caso, pues sí tiene caso porque no se meten a robarles la fruta, la almendra o el pistacho. Ellos se cubren su línea con cerco, pero mejor sería que se cubriera con las vallas verdes para que no pase el polvo.
Next.
Ajá, es el mismo, que ellos, los rancheros tienen cerco, sí, está bien, pero pues no cubre el polvo. Y enfrente hay casas. Esta calle le tomamos fotografías porque si ustedes pasaran por ahí cuando están limpiando los pistachos o las almendras, es demasiado polvo, demasiado. Y hay mucho espacio para poner esas vallas, esos laureles para que puedan cubrir. Todo es cuestión de que los rancheros y ustedes se pongan de acuerdo. Es la escuela. Si se fijan, la escuela está ahí cerca de los sembradíos y los niños pasan caminando, pasan y el polvo les pasa por todos lados, lo respiran. Los carros también, los padres tienen que ir a dejar los niños ahí y es mucho polvo el que están respirando y es demasiada contaminación. Demasiada contaminación. Muchos rancheros riegan la orilla de sus files, pero ¿qué pasa cuando en tiempo de calor que sube a 110, 115? Riegan en la mañana, pero cuando el tractor o el que sacude los pistachos o las almendras, ya está seco eso, ya está seco y la tierra no la pueden detener, el polvo no se puede detener. Entonces, yo sé que hacen el esfuerzo por mantener esa humedad, pero no sirve de nada porque es nomás momentáneo. En cambio, las vallas que nosotros queremos que pongan son permanentes hasta que ellos la quieran quitar.
Next.
Si ellos usan las vallas verdes, se van a ahorrar lo que le pagan a un regador. Me da tristeza porque es su trabajo del que riega, ¿verdad? Pero me da más tristeza que nuestras comunidades, nuestros niños respiren todo ese polvo. Y que los que van a trabajar en madrugada, no hay luces, no hay luz mercurial, hay neblina, hay polvo y es muy difícil trasladarse de un lugar a otro por esas carreteras con polvo. Yo sé que se le paga a un regador, pero ya sembrando esas vallas verdes, no van a tener que pagarle a un regador. Se van a ahorrar ese regador, porque la planta no necesita mucha agua. Es más, yo creo que ni agua le echan, es mínimo lo que le pueden echar de agua. Y van a gastar menos agua se va a gastar menos agua que los regadores que están echándole agua a las orillas de los files. Aparte, ¿se imaginan una pipa cuántos galones de agua tira? Pónganse a pensar cuántas veces la pipa tiene que cargar su tanque para regar. En cambio, la valla verde con un poquito de goteo se ahorran agua y tiene protección. Tenemos protección la comunidad. Aparte, se ve bonito el camino cuando vas manejando porque tiene sus flores de colores. Esa es la presentación que tenemos.
Next.
Ya era la tercera toda.
Thank you.
That was the end of the presentation.
Thank you so much, Annabelle, for that update. It sounds like the subcommittee has been working vigorously to develop some potential solutions for the committee. I know you all have been talking about other things on that committee, so I'd like to invite David Lopez to provide us with some of the other updates from the committee.
Yes, good evening, everybody. Thank you, Annabelle, for the little presentation there. It was great. I appreciate all the pictures. It was very well done. We, presented the subcommittee last month to discuss what these vegetative barriers or these green barriers are and how they can be effective tools in reducing dust and air pollution in a region. And we, once again, really appreciate the feedback. We are going to be, we're currently processing and developing a request for proposals to find a grantee to administer the grant. Looking for an administering either an agency or a nonprofit, or better, in my opinion, if it's possible, a partnership, so that the community has a very strong say where these locations can be, as presented this evening in the presentation right now from Annabelle and her team. And then what we're trying to do is find an agency or a partnership or a nonprofit to then administer the grant and work in, who also has the skill level and understanding of what goes into implementing these green barrier projects. So in the meantime, we appreciate the feedback. And right now, Zong is going to be presenting the mapping tool, but this information that was presented this evening, we will also put that into our materials. So thank you.
Thanks, David. Yes, I'm going to drop in the chat a link where we'd love to get more feedback on possible locations for vegetative barriers. Add that. And I'm going to share my screen so that I can share the mapping tool that we put together. This might be familiar. It's been a while, but we've used a similar tool, a social pinpoint tool. So basically what we're doing here is just, here you can see an outline of Shafter, and all you need to do is grab this green with the tree, little dot oval, and just plop it wherever you feel. So you can just drag it, and anywhere you feel like there would be, an ideal spot for a vegetative barrier. And you can add your input, include your name if you'd like, and email if you have one. If you don't, go ahead and you can put in the AB617 at valleyair.org email for to capture your feedback, and you can do it in Spanish or English. And so please, utilize this tool if you can, or if you'd like to. And you can also just call us or email us the information as well. The presentation that Annabelle provided, that was also a presentation or tool that she sent us, and their, the residents that put it together. So just wanted to share that with everyone, that this is an online tool, but you can also give us a call, as well as send us an email with some locations that you feel would be ideal for the vegetative barrier. Do you have any questions? I'd be happy to.
Thanks, Zong. Yeah, I see Linda has a question for you.
Sure.
And Linda, before you get started, just what I'm hearing, Zong, is this tool is being implemented. If you all have questions about the tool, questions about how to use it, feel free to reach out at any time. Linda?
Yeah, I just first wanted to say thank you to Annabelle for going out and taking those pictures of those barriers at Lerdo. I think that those are a great example of keeping the dust down on that busy road. I had a question. Well, I had a few questions. On this mapping tool, I was looking at it earlier. There's a tree planted at Mantle Park as a vegetative barrier, and I don't know if that was a mistake, because that park actually it's right in the center of town, and it has actually probably the best shade trees out of all of our parks. And I didn't know if some of these could be a mistake. There was another one at a park. There's another one like in the middle of town. Off of East Orange. I don't know if maybe some of the roads got mixed up.
Linda, I can quickly, briefly respond to that. We had gotten some information on email, and it was an exact location, so maybe we might have entered it incorrectly on the map. We'll double check and make sure we got that correct from your suggestion.
Because if we were going to put some trees at a park, Veterans is in desperate need.
Sure.
I just wanted to back up the vegetative barrier at Beach and State. I have friends that live in that area and are constantly getting spray on their cars. So I am really for that. And I was just curious why there's a tree way over here on the other side of 99 off of like road. I can't read it because it's through 5039. It just says test recommendation. I don't really know. yeah, there was just some trees.
That might have, I'm sorry, that might have been when we did the presentation on the 22nd, we might have just showing it as an example test, how to drop the the vegetative barriers logo there so you can pinpoint it. I think it was put out there east of town just as an example. Sorry about that. We can have that removed.
Okay, I didn't understand because I don't really.
No, that's okay. I can, I get it. So
I just, as we're moving forward with the RFP, and I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, we had close to what, $1 million for vegetative barriers. And as we're moving through the RFP, we're talking about, a nonprofit or someone of that caliber doing this proposal. I feel like it's hard because we ran into this problem with the urban greening money for people to upfront that much money and then get reimbursed. So I was just hoping that Valley Air could look into some other ways for funding so that nonprofits could apply for it, because they just don't, I don't know of any company that can upfront $1 million for vegetative barriers. And I just think that this is a very important thing for our community with the dust, so that we can all live in harmony together. So just.
no, thank you, Linda. We understand that, and we really do appreciate the comment. And internally, we are discussing, how to make sure, finding ways to make sure that we follow everything we can in our guidelines, and then also making this a successful project. So thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Linda, for voicing your concerns. Anabel? Oh, you're muted, Anabel. We can't hear you.
¿Ya?
Ahora sí.
¿Ahora sí? Ok. Linda, no sé si recuerdas que se agarró dinero de estas de tren que se iba a pasar para los fondos que tenemos para las barras vegetativas. No creo que necesitemos más dinero, ¿o tú piensas que sí? Porque ya tenemos una cantidad y la razón que yo lo pregunto es porque no queremos que eso se extienda más, porque va a regresar otro año, va a haber más con la misma contaminación y nos vamos yendo largo y largo y largo. No hay que esperar a que nos den más. Hay que actuar con el dinero que hay, y hay que pedir a los rancheros que se les dio dinero de nuestros fondos que nos ayuden. Por eso pedimos a quienes se les dio dinero, cuánto dinero se les dio, para hablar con ellos y que nos ayuden a que ellos pongan sus barreras verdes. Entonces, no sé si entendí bien lo que dijiste, perdóname, no escuché bien, pero sí escuché que dijiste que buscar a alguien para que dé aportación, algo así dijiste.
I don't know where the translation, I think there's a problem with the translation. I don't know who can help us with the translation that okay, so I don't know if there's a better way to explain the way that Valley Air gets Shafter the money. It's through a grant that people have to apply, and so whoever applies to put the trees in, they have to upfront the money. I don't know how to explain that in the translation.
Yeah, so normally during the allocation of funds to the community, Anabel, the organization that's applying for those funds have to have enough operating or core operating costs to pay the money up front, and then the district will reimburse them. It's like when I go, if I have a grant and I need to pay staff, I need to be able to cover my payroll for staff, and then we get reimbursed if we went and did some sort of job or something like that. So that's what you were talking about, right, Linda? How that reimbursement process really weeds out many people, many organizations that don't have those funds to be able to cover the costs and accrue those costs up front and wait for reimbursement.
Yeah, can you explain that? Or does she
Sí,
understand?
sí se entiende lo que están tratando de decir. Disculpe, soy Ana Valle. Sí entiendo lo que están diciendo, pero eso es como, no creo que alguien tenga dinero para pagarlo y luego, luego después agarrar el reembolso, porque me imagino que va a ser bastante dinero y no tiene sentido de que estén pensando hacer eso si está el dinero que pueden darlo de una vez o darle las cantidades que se van necesitando, porque nadie va a invertir $10,000 y luego esperar a agarrarlos. Y no tiene, eso no tiene, para mi ver, no tiene sentido lo que ustedes están tratando de decir o hacer, porque sí entendemos lo que están diciendo, pero no le miro el sentido a eso. Por eso es que nadie trata de hacerlo, porque tienen que poner su dinero y luego ser reembolsado ese dinero. Así no se hace, así no funcionan los negocios ni. Aquí está Felipa, que también quiero
Sí, mi nombre es Felipa Trujillo. Y yo me acuerdo que había 83 millones que dieron para que arreglaran Chapter, porque era uno de los pueblos que fue escogido para eso. Y tenían 83 millones. Y no se ha hecho nada aquí en Chapter. Yo hasta ahorita no he visto nada. Ya tengo 3 años viniendo a estas juntas y siempre lo mismo. Y hasta ahorita no hemos visto absolutamente nada más las máquinas que dieron hace poco. Y había 83 millones para eso.
Thank you, everyone who's shared that. Ryan, I see your hand raised. Maybe you want to provide some clarity here.
Yeah, and thanks to everybody that has presented and shared their feedback on this topic. And David shared a little bit. When we develop these project plans, they're typically with these funds. There are certain ways in which they have to get expended and spent, and that's where we have to work closely with CARB. Anytime there are adjustments. And so getting this feedback from you allows us to engage with CARB and how these programs may work and some of the things that need to be considered as part of this in order to make these programs successful and for people to be able to utilize them. So that's definitely the information that we're looking for to use and to work with CARB on what may be possible, and then bringing that information, continuing to bring that back to the community steering committee members and making sure that they're informed throughout that. And Felipa, we definitely hear the concerns that you raised, that you haven't seen some of the projects, and these are large projects, and so very thankful that a few months ago we did receive the governing board supported projects that are going to benefit both La Colonia in installing sidewalks and curbs and gutters and things of that nature, as well as in Chapter and building some sidewalks and bike lanes that are going to greatly benefit the communities. But those projects are going to take time to happen, and so you're not going to see them tomorrow. But we're working closely with the city and the county to get those projects moving forward. So your time here is well spent, and there's going to be a lot of good things that are to be coming. But we just appreciate you sticking with it, and you and everybody else that's there tonight, and everybody else that's on the Zoom meeting tonight for all your continued efforts as well.
Annabelle, please go ahead.
Sí, no, lo que pasa es que nos frustra que para las compañías grandes se les soltó el dinero bien rápido. Fíjense, desde cuando ellos tienen sus máquinas eléctricas y sus tractores eléctricos, los montones de dinero que se les dio, porque tenemos la lista. La que más agarró fue la compañía Wonderful, que es la más rica. Y desafortunadamente los pobres, los que pedimos esto, nos están dejando con tantas al último y con tantos obstáculos para dar algo. Eso es triste. Triste porque el rico siempre gana. Y la comunidad, si no pagas, si no les pagas, no tienes nada. Los hindúes aquí que les dije de los barbecues, ellos están libres de quemar, nosotros no. Entonces, es triste. Esto se me hace como una pantalla nomás, o como que nomás nos utilizan a nosotros para lograr sus propósitos ustedes, porque a la larga, los que han agarrado todo el dinero han sido los que tienen más. Discúlpeme, no estoy enojada, estoy dando lo que sentimos nosotros como comunidad, porque como dijo Felipa, son 3 años, nosotros tenemos más de 3 años, porque antes de estos 3 años que nos aprobaron esto, nosotros ya estábamos yendo a Sacramento, a Oakland, sin pago, sin comer, con tantas dificultades, cansados del camino, de ir y venir. A veces veníamos a las 12 de la noche, nos íbamos a las 4 de la mañana, para darnos cuenta de que la aprobación del dinero que dieron, la mitad se quedó en Tulare, en Fresno, perdón. De esos que dijo Felipa, 84,000 millones de dólares, nos quedamos con 30 y tantos. Fíjense nada más. El 50% se quedó, quién sabe dónde. Sabemos que en Fresno se le dio una parte, correcto. No nos oponemos a eso porque sabemos que ellos también están en el mismo problema. El problema de nosotros es que siempre se les da a los que más tienen. ¿Por qué? Porque pagan más taxis. Nosotros también pagamos taxis. Porque les pagan impuestos o porque pagan por contaminar. Y nosotros no podemos pagar por contaminar. Yo nomás quiero que reflexionen, que pongan un poquito de lo que ustedes escuchan y nos miren como seres humanos, no como cantidad de dinero, porque nosotros no nos estamos llenando el banco de dinero. En cambio, los rancheros, los del petróleo, los del tren, los de los trenes sí se están llenando sus bancos de dinero. Y nosotros somos los que estamos aquí mes tras mes tras mes. Nos dan $75, sí, pero ¿cuánto se les da a ellos? Es más, nosotros votaríamos porque no nos dieran ni los $75. No nos los den, pero hagan algo por la comunidad. Háganlo. Que se vea que de veras la comunidad les importa. Ya dejen de poner tantas trabas, tantos obstáculos. Sabemos que si ustedes quieren lo pueden hacer, porque han hecho otras cosas. Si un ranchero paga por contaminar o por quemar cierta cantidad y se le va de más y otro ranchero quema menos leña, le paga o se cambian para tener la misma quema. Nosotros sabemos muchas cosas, solamente que creen que como comunidad no nos damos cuenta. Pero sí, señores, sí nos damos cuenta. No, estos 9, 11 años que tenemos en esto, no es por nada. Quizás hay unos que apenas empezaron, quizás hay de la comunidad de nosotros que ni siquiera nos conocen. A Linda yo la conocí apenas, cuando estaban dando los botes de recycle. Ahí fue cuando yo la miré en persona. No sé, ella estaba muy ocupada, quise saludarla, pero no tuve tiempo. Perdóname que hable así, pero es que me frustra, me enoja. Me siento usada por ustedes nomás. Y la comunidad también. No sé qué más quieren que nosotros hagamos para que ustedes nos escuchen y para que ustedes hagan algo. Gracias, buenas noches.
Thank you so much, Anabel, for sharing your reflection and guiding questions. Please note that you never have to apologize. There is no need to apologize. You are a CSC member because you are able to elevate these injustices that you're sharing. So tonight is an opportunity for you to allow us to reflect on these injustices that you're noticing. And so that is why you're here, and your opinion and reflections matter and are very important. And it is the reason why these committees exist, because of people like you. So please don't feel like you ever have to apologize for speaking up. We understand and we're listening. And we think it's really important for you to continue to voice these concerns as we continue to implement AB617 and really dismantle some of these systemic barriers that you're mentioning that get in the way of actually implementing change to eliminate some of the inequities that exist, in particular for the Shafter community. And so being able to respond to requests for proposals and actually use the funds that are allocated for the community is definitely a barrier that has come up in many of the RFP meetings that have happened and many of the subcommittee meetings. So it's something that needs to continue to be addressed. I did see Ryan's hand and Michelle's hand. I'm not sure whose was first. Michelle, would you like to add anything?
Sure. I just wanted to go back to the vegetative barriers for just a second. One of the issues you have about some of the funds that we've given to whether they're low net harvesters or tractors or wherever the funds have gone, we want to make sure the vegetative barriers go where they protect the community with and control the dust, and whether you have the try to cut that down. Those necessarily aren't the people who received the funds that were allocated for a nut harvester. I mean, I live across the street from the ag farm and I get a lot of dust. They didn't get any money. And so we just want to make sure wherever we put our vegetative barriers are the best to protect our community, regardless of who got the funds.
Thank you so much for elevating that. So we will continue to bring up these conversations and ensure that we're bringing a response to everyone in a timely fashion. Ryan, is there anything else that you'd like to add? I know I don't know if you still have your hand up. Sorry.
No, I'll definitely look to touch base with Annabelle and have more discussion around that topic. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. It sounds like that is definitely an action item to provide some clarity on the allocation of funds and the request for proposal process. So at this time, CARB does not have any general updates for us tonight. And if others of you from different agencies have some general updates, please feel free to put them in the chat or to email the area district directly. Zong, if you could put your email address in the chat, that would be great. And we will send out a general email providing everyone with an update of anything that agencies have shared. So in the interest of time, I do see that we're 8 minutes over time. So we're going to take the general updates and move them to electronic format. And at this time, I just want to remind you of our next meeting. As I mentioned previously, it is really important for CSC members to consider attending the agenda setting meetings so that we can discuss how this meeting went and really prepare for the next one. It sounds like Annabelle, for example, there are a lot of things that you could share and bring into that meeting so that we can prioritize answering some of these questions at the November meeting, which will be held on November 14th. And we will have an opportunity to unpack those questions then. At this time, we are moving on. Oh, Linda, go ahead. Oh, you're muted.
The slide back, did you change our time to our meeting? It's not at 5, it's at 3.
Is there a typo? Hold on.
Like
oh, yeah.
our CSC meeting, it's at 5, right?
It's at, I see a typo here. That's at 5. Okay. I will ignore that. That should say 5 o'clock.
Okay,
nobody
so
saw it.
Agenda is the 17th at 3. The meeting, the 14th at 5.
Yes, this should be 5 o'clock. My apologies for that. Didn't catch that. So I hope to see you all, CSC members, at the agenda setting meeting next week. At this time, we are at public comment. So if there's anyone from the public that has any comments, now would be the time to raise your hand. And let me momentarily check our YouTube live stream to see if we have any questions from the public. Not seeing any on my end. No questions here. Okay, well, with that said, I'm going to pass it to my colleague Vanessa to walk us through the list of action items that we've collected today. As a reminder, these action items are taken real time and we are documenting what you all are sharing. If you have modifications, whether it's to the language or adding action items, please do feel free to share that modification. Vanessa, you ready?
Yes, I'm ready. Let me go ahead and share my screen real quick so I can share the action items with everyone. Everyone see my screen okay?
Maybe if you can zoom in a little bit more.
Sure. Is that okay?
Looks
okay,
good.
perfect. Thank you, Amy. So as Amy mentioned, I'm going to read the action items out loud. If you have any modifications to the action items, whether missing anything in the actual action item, whether you want me to change the language, or if there are any other missing action items that aren't on here, please let me know and I'll make sure to make those changes. So for the first action item, I have the Air District is asking CSC members to provide them with feedback on the SERP annual report by the end of the month via phone or email. For the second action item, the Air District will initiate an in-depth conversation about the amount of notice of violations issued related to oil and gas, and if SERP strategies for Shafter that were focused on oil and gas were fully implemented and or what the status is on these. Third action item, the Air District will follow up with Shafter to determine whether stores, which were named as Apple Market, Hacienda Market, and Fiesta Latina Market, are allowed to burn wood on the weekends and have permits to do so. The Air District will also be providing an update about this at the next CSC meeting. For our fourth action item, DPR will provide a summary about what happened at DPR's November community workshop, as well as public comments provided at the November CSC meeting. And for the fifth action item, the Air District will share information on emissions released from smokers and or commercial grade barbecues at the following CSC meeting in November. Does anyone have any questions or comments for me at this time? Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone, for staying 13 minutes over time. We do appreciate all of your efforts and the commitment that you're making to reducing carbon emissions in the Shafter regions and continue to talk about some of the injustices that exist in the community. We're here to problem solve together and to, in order to address really complicated issues, we really need complex solutions, and that's part of the discussion that we're having today. So with that in mind, I would love for you all to think about today's meeting and reflect on the questions that Annabelle left us with those guiding questions. And we'll hopefully see many of the CSC members at the agenda setting meeting next week. And if we don't see you then we expect to see you at November's CSC meeting. Thank you, everyone, and have a good night.
Thank you.
Good night. Buenas noches.